Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission for September 17th, 2020. The time is 4:31. My name is Michael Lambert, your city librarian. In the absence of having an incumbent staff member serving in the capacity of Library Commission Secretary, I will be serving as the default Library Commission Secretary this evening. Due to the COVID-19 health emergency and to protect library commissioners, staff, and the public, the San Francisco Public Library, Main Library, and the Corrett Auditorium are closed. However, members will be participating in the meeting remotely. This precaution is taken pursuant to the statewide stay-at-home order and all preceding and proceeding local, state, and federal orders, declarations, and directives. Commissioners will attend the meeting through video conference and participate in the meeting to the same extent as if they were physically present. Public comment will be available for each item on the agenda. Members of the public can observe the meeting using the Webex system by following the link in the library's event calendar and also on the Library Commission meeting agenda, or by calling the local number 1-415-655-0001 and entering the access code for this specific meeting. The access code for today's meeting is 1-461-743-627. When connected by phone, members of the public can dial *3 to be added to the public comment queue. Individuals joining via Webex should click the raise hand button. It is near the participant panel on the right side of the screen. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a little participants bubble box. So you can click on that raise hand button in order to be added to the public comment queue. Best practices for all public commenters are to call from a quiet location, speak clearly and slowly, and turn down your television or radio. Each commenter will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. All commenters will remain on mute until their line is open. In facilitating this meeting this evening and to assist in moderating public comment, I'm joined for operation support by the library's digital strategist, Bill Kolb. Mr. Kolb will be calling upon members of the public by name or by caller number to prompt each attendee who wishes to provide public comment. Emailed public comments have been posted to the Library Commission's webpage, along with the agenda and explanatory documents. The chat function built into Webex will not be monitored by commissioners or presenters, and it is not intended as a channel for providing comment or feedback to the commission. Commissioners and presenters will not respond to content added to the chat. I will now commence with roll call. Library commissioners in attendance are Dr. Mary Wardell Giraduzzi, our Library Commission President, Vice President Susan Mall, Commissioners Ono, Lee, Wong, and Wolf. The Library Commission currently has one vacancy. Madam President.
Is my mic on? Yes, I'm unmuted. Thank you so much, City Librarian Lambert. Hello, and welcome to this meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. Today is September 17th. I want to thank you to the members of the public who are attending this meeting remotely. If you have not done so already, all the materials for this meeting are available for download on Library Commission page of the library's website, which is sfpl.org. We have a total of 5 agenda items today, so we are going to begin with the item number 1 on the agenda, and we're going to open it up for general public comment. Members of the public who wish to provide general public comment should raise their hands in order to be added to the queue. Again, if you are using the WebEx interface, click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the screen. If you have called into the WebEx dial-in number at 1-415-655-0001, please press *3 to line up to speak.
Madam Chair, Operations is checking to see if there are any callers in the queue. And again, if you have not already done so, please raise your hand in WebEx or press *3 to be added to the queue. And for those of you already on hold in the queue, please continue to wait until it's your turn to speak. Operations.
Madam President, there are callers in the queue.
Thank you, Operations. Please begin allowing general public comment.
Caller, your 3 minutes begins now.
Good afternoon. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com. I hope you can hear me. Is that correct?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. First, in general, I wanted to say that the web opportunity basically breaks privacy. To watch on WebEx, it appears, from what I have seen, that you need to allow cookies and that you need to provide a bunch of information which is not required and should not be required by law. People who might want to comment anonymously without giving their name and so on, and without giving anything up of value, might want to do so. Second, at last month's meeting, I once again at the adjournment period said that what I have said many times before, that the Library Commission should not end the meeting without insisting that there be an item on every agenda item in future for their opportunity to say what things they would like to see on the agenda. There then followed one of the commissioners commenting on a letter that he had received and made extensive comments on something that was not on the agenda and wasn't anything that I had mentioned, in effect proving my point. That would have been the very moment when such an agenda item would have been the appropriate one at which to raise questions about receiving letters, how the library is doing with respect to its service for the public and its opportunity to make public comment. Some general comments. Unfortunately, we're still having very slow conversion into any library service. Only 5 libraries, I think is the count now, are providing any service, and it's a very limited service. That seems to me painfully slow and exacerbated by the learning hubs, which certainly are doing what seems like a worthwhile goal, but are doing so at the cost of library service for everyone, including the students. And the second general thing is that there is no service standard for library to go. I was told at one point that my book would be 1 to 2 months additional to the 6 weeks I'd been waiting, and then the next day was told it was available for another week or so. When you discuss handouts, please point out page numbers and who is speaking. It's very hard to follow, especially when you're only on the telephone, as I am today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Operations, are there further callers in the queue?
Madam President, there's an additional commenter.
Please put the commenter through, please.
Caller, your 3 minutes begins now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
I believe the San Francisco Public Library has failed to fulfill its legal and administrative duties to provide the same level of service to all San Francisco Public Library patrons. The issue is one of equity. The most egregious example of this failure is the library's practice of sending out via email numerous announcements, which has been the case since March anyway, which the library administration has failed to send out to tens of thousands of library patrons who do not have internet access. This constitutes a major failure of the library to do its legal and administrative duties, and this failure begs to be heard by a court of law to issue a mandate for you to do what you're all paid to do. Some people are paid very, very well to do what they're not doing. There's also great concern in the Mission District, where the main library on 24th Street has been closed for renovation for at least the next year. Therefore, even if you should want to open it, you cannot open it for any services at all. As far as I know, the library has made no plans to provide any substitute service to the North Mission and the Central Mission District, as actually they did many, many years ago, where there was some lesser renovation going on. And I believe you took some space in the bank building on Mission Street at 22nd to provide some modicum of service. Circumstances were similar, but not entirely different. So I urge you to address both these critical issues. The internet failure has been one, the failure to provide the same level of service for those with and without the internet has been an ongoing issue that predates the virus, and frankly, I think can only be solved with a mandate from a court of law, because the commission has failed to address this issue, and the city librarian has failed to address this issue. See no other alternative. The Library Commission, unfortunately, seems to be mostly just a rubber stamp for the city librarian. Very rarely does the Library Commission provide any critical perspective on the impact of library services and the lack thereof to the patrons and the citizens and taxpayers of San Francisco. You are well behind the curve on this matter, and I urge you to understand you have a duty to fulfill, which you are not doing. Good luck.
Thank you for your comment. Operations, are there any more requests for comment?
Madam President, there are no additional commenters.
Okay, thank you for those comments. And we are going to move on to agenda item number 2, which is a discussion of our Mission Branch Library renovation. There are explanatory documents that go with this presentation. And then after we've had public comment, the commissioners will have a discussion on the matter.
Thank you, President Wardell. Good afternoon, Library Commissioners. It's been a little over a year since we last presented at the July 18, 2019 Library Commission meeting to highlight the status of our branch capital projects. One of the bright spots of this year has been the continued progress of our plans for the major renovation of the historic Mission Branch Library. As you know, this project was fully funded in previous budget cycles. In recent weeks, we've achieved some notable milestones that staff looks forward to sharing. Our Chief of Branches, Kathy Del Neo, has been shepherding this project, and she will be co-presenting this afternoon with Public Works Architect Andy Sohn. Kathy?
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon. Kathy Del Neo. I'm the Chief of Branches for the San Francisco Public Library. My colleague Andy Sohn and I appreciate the opportunity to provide you with an update on the Mission Branch Library renovation. Next slide, please. The 2018 Branch Capital Study outlined a number of goals for the renovation of the Mission Branch Library, including bringing back a community meeting room to the branch, improving facilities and families, adding a dedicated teen area, restoring the historic reading room and the original layout of this Carnegie Library, improving sightlines for patrons and staff, increasing public restroom capacity, creating a more flexible and adaptable shelving and furniture plan, updating the elevator mechanical systems, and seismic upgrades to meet the current code. That is a lot to fit into the footprint of the existing Mission Branch Library. And for the reason, the feasibility study also recommended the exploration of additions on the Orange Alley and Bartlett sides of the branch. Next slide, please. Since the inception of this project, we've had many opportunities for engagement with the community of the Mission Branch Library, including a community survey, open house, a series of community meetings at the branch in the spring of 2018, and another series of community meetings at the branch in the beginning of 2019. There have also been opportunities for public engagement when the project went before the Civic Design Review in June 2019 and 20, and when the project or the Historic Preservation Commission in August 2020. These meetings and conversations have provided insight into the hopes of the Mission community for their library. A recurring theme was that the Mission Branch should be updated so that it would continue to meet the community needs in the 21st century. The community supported the goals identified in the 2018 feasibility study, particularly the need to improve spaces for youth, to add a dedicated teen area, and to add a flexible meeting room space that could both accommodate the many events and programs the branch team does a wonderful job hosting weekly, and also as additional seating capacity when that room is not in use for programs. Other frequently mentioned topics were the need to increase public restrooms, a desire to return the branch to 24th Street, and the dream of bringing back a grand central staircase to the branch. Next slide. At this time, we are pleased to let you know that the Mission Renovation Project has gained all of the required approvals from the San Francisco Arts Commission and the San Francisco Planning Department. Next slide. Our next step in the project is to obtain a building permit. The project will go out to bid in November 2020, and that the contracting process should conclude by March 2021. We anticipate having to proceed in May 2021. And now I'm going to turn it over to Andy Sohn, the project architect from Public Works, who will share the designs with you.
Thank you, Kathy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Andy.
Okay, yeah, just sorry, thank you. I'm Andy Sohn. I'm the project lead at Public Works Bureau of Architecture. As Kathy mentioned, you can go to the next slide, Bill. As Kathy mentioned, we've received most of our major approvals, including historic planning. Our last major approval required will be the building permit, which we'll be seeking this fall. Let me start with a brief history of the building. Next slide, please. The building, Mission Library, is one of 7 Carnegie libraries in San Francisco. It was designed by G. Albert Landsberg, and it was built in 1915, renovated in 1997, which resulted in the loss of many historic features. In 2000, the building was designated a historic landmark. This is a picture of the building, the old building at the corner of Bartlett and 24th to your left, and then to the right is a picture of the original entry to the building. Next slide. These are interior views of the original building, which show the main reading room to your left, which is going to remain largely unchanged. And then to your right, and you can also see it in the left image, is the original historic stair, which was demolished in 1997. Next slide, please. This is the original floor plan, which on the where it says main entrance at the lower, that's 24th Street. And that was the original main entrance where that star is. And then there was a historic stair in the center. And then to the left was the lecture room. Next slide, please. And in 1997, the building was renovated. The main entrance was moved around to the left on Bartlett Street, and the lecture room was filled in with a computer lab and circulation desk, and the stair was moved into the upper left corner. So next slide. Next slide, please. So this is neighborhood context. The building is on 24th Street between Mission and Valencia Street. To the east is Bartlett Street, which is residential street, and then to the west, to the right, is the Space Frame Church that's on Valencia Street with the peaked roof. Next slide. There's wide sidewalks, and this is a diagram which shows you how much is the library property, and then which is a city sidewalk right of way. Next slide. So I'm going to go through the landscape design now, which is being designed by landscape architects in our department. We're in the Bureau of Landscape Architecture. Next slide. The main features of the landscape will be a landscape courtyard on Bartlett Street, which you can see sort of on the left part of the image next to the 2 street trees. This will allow outdoor library programming, nighttime entry to the community room, and stroller parking during children's story time. It is located directly adjacent to what you'll see later is our proposed community room. The scope of the project includes replacing all of the sidewalk with city standard unit pavers, new street lighting. You can see there's a plant, the green strip along the horizontal green strip is the proposed planting along the building face, and existing street trees will remain. Next slide. This is just a little closer up view showing how the courtyard, which is green in the image, relates to the lavender community room. Right now, there is no space for children's story time and or stroller parking in the original building. And so this will allow us to do story time in the room and stroller park in the courtyard. Next slide. These are some of the materials for the streetscape. Those are the unit pavers that we're proposing, and the lighting and bicycle racks. Next slide. I would love to tell you about the plant palette. I'm not a plant person. Our landscape architect is not on this call, but this is the plant palette. Next slide. Some of the outdoor furnishings proposed for the courtyard. Next slide. And this is a section through the courtyard that shows the height of the fence and kind of the general look of the furnishings next to the building. Next slide. There will be a new fence. It's going to be over 6 feet tall, provide some security in that courtyard. It's going to be a metal, sort of a woven a fence that you can see there. The design of the fence is inspired by the motif of the architectural surround around the windows. And the alignment of the fence is with architectural features of the building facade. Next slide. This is a little closer up view showing the bike racks, and where it says 6-inch curb, that's going to enclose the planters along the face of the building. Next. Okay, so now we'll talk about the architecture and the building design. Next slide, please. This is a diagram that shows the restorative nature of what we're proposing. The images at the top of the screen are the 1914 floor plans, the ground floor and main floor, ground floor on the left, main floor on the right, and then 1997 in the middle, and then the 2020 down below. You can see the relationship between the likeness between 1914 and 1920, and that we are proposing sort of restoring per se the original intent of the building. The community demanded a community room, and so the natural place was where the original lecture room was. I wanted to mention now just something that will be features of the building related to resiliency. Because of heat and air quality events like we've had recently, and we've seen in increasing years, we're going to air condition the entire building, and the mechanical systems will be filtered to MERV 13 levels. That's MERV, so that's sort of your filtration media standards. It's a high standard and it's appropriate for a building like this. So it'll be much more comfortable during environmental events like this. On the lower image where it says 2020, to take back that space for the community room requires us to displace some of the program that was installed in the 1990s, such as a telecommunication room and a large main electrical room. So that drove the need for expansion. And so you can see in the lower floor plans the two expanded areas to the right. Next slide. This is the proposed floor plan of the basement, which will house utility spaces such as telecommunication and electrical rooms. We are the L-shaped piece to the right is the basement. Next slide. And this is the ground floor. The purple area, the lavender area, that is the new community room that can hold 100 people. There's a lobby in the middle. Sorry, I can't point to anything. And then areas are the green with a new service desk, and then children's room to the right and within the new proposed expansion. Next slide. This is the main floor, the main reading room, the historic reading room. You can see the inclusion of the historic stair in the center. To the upper left, this in the back bar, there is a group study room. There's a restroom on this floor. I didn't mention the restrooms. We are increasing the restroom count on the lower floor, and we're providing a restroom which on the upper floor, which there is no restroom there now. There's a staff workroom in the middle, and then a service desk, and then to the right, within the new expanded area, will be the teen area. Next slide. This is a roof plan showing the solar panels on the south facing roof. Next slide. There's going to be solar panels with battery storage on this project. These are interior views the next few slides will be interior views. This is a view within the new community room. We've got a riser in the front of the room. To the right, you see images of the Montoya prints, which are part of the public art that exists in the building. We're gonna house them in this room on that main wall. Next slide. This is a view from the community room into the lobby. One of our original guiding principles, you may remember that from the feasibility study we did, was transparency through the building. And so we're opening up the building. You can see the connectedness through here. Next slide. This is a view at the lobby showing the stair, and the service desk at the entry, and the holds over on the left. You know, when we had community meetings, we did get, and proposed that we were going to return the stair to its location. We did get an outpouring of sentiment about loss of the original stair. One of the things about this stair is that it will provide a much greater sense of a greater connection for staff and for patrons between the two floors. Currently, with the stair shoved over in the corner, there's sort of a sense of isolation between the two floors. Next slide. Another view of the stair with the community room to the left. Next. And this is a view inside the teen room. Our person in the teen room is not looking very teenagerly, but this is a view within that room. One of the neat things about this expanded space is sort of the proportion in height, but also the fact that you get the west facade of the original historic building within the space, and then great views out to the west. Next, please. These are building elevations. This is the building elevation on 24th Street. You can see the expansion to the right or to the west next to the Space Frame Church. Our goals were relationship and connections to the original building, proportion, materials, and we wanted to make the design differentiated but compatible. Next. This is an elevation view along Orange Alley. The building materials will be architectural concrete for the base and architectural wall panels and glazing systems above the base. Next slide. This is a diagram that we did for Historic Preservation Commission that shows the relationship of the building, its datums and rhythm. Next. These are building sections. The image to the right is a long section. You can see the community room down below, the children to the right, reading room above, and then the expansion to the right or the west. And you can see where it says teen, where it says T and then N. But next slide, please. These are some exterior views. This is Bartlett Street showing the landscape courtyard with the fence, the residential neighborhood to the left, new street lights, and the new sidewalk and planting strip along 24th Street. Next. This is a view from just below Valencia Street. This shows the church to the right and our building expansion on the end there facing west. Next. This is a view at the front of the building, and you can see how we're doing a very discrete connection, a sensitive connection, and to the historic facade was imperative with the Historic Preservation Commission. Next. There's another view of the building addition. One of our goals with the transparency of the addition is that there will be some sense of view to the original historic facade through the building, and particularly at nighttime. Next slide. This is the material palette for the building. Those are architectural metal wall panels at the top on the left. There'll be a weathered bronze finish with a similar colored curtain wall. The base will be architectural cast-in-place concrete. The images to the right are the existing facade with the decorative terracotta banding and terracotta tile. Next. And that's it. These are just some images of the original building. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy and Andy. I'll turn it over to you, Madam President.
Thank you very much for that very good presentation. We're going to open it up now to public comment on this item. We're on the item of the Mission Branch Library renovation.
Madam President, there's currently one commenter in the queue.
Would you put the commenter through, please?
Caller, your 3 minutes begins now.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com. I have to say this is a gigantic disappointment. And let's start out with mechanics. We didn't hear what the document was that was going to be read from. The document has no page numbers, and we weren't even told, for those of us on the phone, what the heading was on the page number. Hello? Is it not a basic thing to put page numbers on a document so somebody can say, let's look at page 16? How about some basics? With respect to the design, it was my understanding that the old grand stairway would be restored because it was presumably still in place and not demolished. This building had a tremendously dramatic and beautiful entrance. You entered through a modest door, and before you was this grand stairway where, I don't know, 7 people, 12 people could walk shoulder to shoulder up toward the light in the reading room. And when you drew up to the top of the reading room, you were facing a very grand service desk where the librarians basically reigned over everything, over the whole space, and were in control of, and at least in visual control of, the whole place and who was coming and going. My understanding was that this would be restored because, as Mr. Sohn said, the renovation, as far as I'm concerned, was a crime. And what happened was there was a tiny, narrow space where barely 2 people could pass to get to the whole rest of the building after the circulation desk. And then they could squeeze up a nasty little stairway of concrete with metal banisters that reminded me of my junior high school. And then you crawled in basically through the side through the side, the very corner of that grand, bright, and wonderful reading room, instead of entering in the middle and as you got higher up the stairway came toward the light, symbolically and literally. That doesn't seem to be there. There's a little stairway with some kind of metal banisters. Okay, what's the number of books? How about some specifics? Why don't we have any book count as to how many books are going to be accommodated? There's no specificity here, and another thing that's missing completely is alternate service. And I don't see one word about alternate service, and that would be another crime. This is one of the largest libraries. It serves a big community. It should have alternate service for the whole time that it's closed for construction.
3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Operations, are there further commenters?
Madam President, there's an additional commenter.
Please put the commenter through.
Marie, your 3 minutes begin now.
Hello, this is Marie Sapella, Executive Director of Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. And wow, I have not seen these, and this is pretty incredible. It's beautiful. It's what a change to the use of the building. I'm just really grateful. Thank you, Kathy, and to the architect. Just a piece of joy in the middle of difficult times. But I also, wanted to say that, on the issue of accessibility and people being able to get things during the period of the renovation, we are here. We are open to any kind of ideas in which we can help in any way for materials, Wi-Fi, anything for that neighborhood, because we know it is a high-need neighborhood, as many are across the city. But wow, this is beautiful, and thank you so much.
Thank you for the call. Operations, are there any further commenters?
Madam President, there are no additional commenters.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I'd like to open this up now to for discussion among the commissioners. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make sure that I can see when your hand is raised, so that I know that your hand is raised, and then I will call upon you by your name. This is for those that are listening. I see we're preparing to open up discussion for commissioners, and Commissioner Wolf, Connie Wolf, if you would unmute yourself and make your comment.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. I want to just say that this is really exciting. I want to thank the staff and the architectural team. You were given a really big list from a very extensive community outreach program, and it's impressive. It's exciting, it's responsive, and I'm really excited about how you have worked within this very tight envelope to create something really specific for this community. So I want to thank you for your innovation, your creativity, really pushing the boundaries. I had a couple of quick questions, which was, could you give the dimensions of the addition? What is the width of it and what is the length of it?
Andy, can you answer that question?
I can, of course. I don't have it at the tip of my fingers right now.
Or just an estimate? I'm just curious what the scale is.
It's about 15 feet wide.
Okay.
And then it's the sort of length of the building. I apologize. Usually I have a data sheet with me, and I didn't do that today.
That's all right. I just was curious about what that width was, and 15
Yeah.
And I really love how for the teens that historical facade becomes part of their environment, so that kind of history comes alive for them. So I really appreciate that. The second question, I'm sure you've thought of everything, because this is not the first time you've had to work on these kinds of issues, but I love the idea of the garden, the gated area in front. And what happens in inclement weather for the stroller parking?
I can, this is Kathy Delno for that. So right now, what happens at the branch is everybody's bringing all the strollers in all of the time, and just a traffic jam of strollers on the way back to the children's room. So in inclement weather, we do anticipate that probably the strollers will be coming into the branch, but it's at least a more spacious area for people to bring in the strollers. So probably the children's grown-ups will bring their strollers into the meeting room directly.
Great. So I just want to conclude by saying thank you. This is really a great opportunity to refurbish and rethink the historic fabric of this very important structure in our city. It's unfortunate that certain decisions were made in the 1997 renovation, but I feel like you're embracing the original character and really bringing an enormous resource back to the community and expanding it. So thank you for your effort. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Wolf. Commissioner John Lee, if you would unmute yourself and make your comment and or question.
Yes. Thanks very much for the presentation, and particularly the listing of the renovation goals. With the presentation, I was able to go through the goals and check mark most of it, and I really glad to see such a thorough sort of attention to the goals. One part that I'm interested in, which is not part of the goal, but I have a curiosity, is about a solar panel. How much does the solar panel supply to the energy need of the branch? Is that a zero, or it actually would be feeding back to the grid?
They're going to be, it will be grid tied, but there's going to be there'll be battery backup. Again, I don't have that exact data. It will not supply all of the power required for the branch. That would be a very large system, but the intent is that we can do peak shaving for energy high demand times, and we can also have battery backup for some limited amount of building system utilization in the event of power outages. So that's kind of the intent. I should have mentioned during the presentation that the city has initiatives that have come into play after we've done the design for this building, which have to do with the electrification of all city facilities. And so electrification means there will be no natural gas appliances, no water heaters, no gas stoves, anything that uses natural gas on future city buildings. This building will be fully electrified, and the solar panels fit into that schema. I can get you more exact information about the solar panel system if you like.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Thanks for giving such a great presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. I'd like to ask Commissioner Susan Mall if she would unmute herself. And Susan, you can go ahead and ask your questions and or comments. Susan?
Yeah. You can,
okay.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
I just want to say that I thought.
Susan? Susan, we can hear you clearly. Commissioner Mall?
Yes.
There you go.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I thought that the design, the way it incorporated the old with the new, was very well done and really quite exciting. And I love it that it's air conditioned. And I love that there's a teen center other than the main library. And I guess this is a question. Are there other libraries that have a teen center, or will this be the first of the branches? And I just think I love the landscaping. I just think it looks like a great, great addition. So congratulations to everyone involved. And instead of bringing those strollers in, couldn't you build some kind of like little like a like a garage that's not really a 3-door garage? There's just like some kind of overhead. I've been at the libraries when it's story hour, and it is a mob scene. So, that is just a point, but beautiful job.
Thank you, Commissioner Mall. This is regarding the teen centers. Hi. Regarding teen centers, our branches that were renovated through the Branch Library Improvement Program, they all have a teen area. So there's space in those branches for teens specifically. Chinatown, Ocean View, and Mission branches, which were not renovated through the Branch Library Improvement Program, do not really have the dedicated teen area. And I have to say, this particular teen area is really a special one that Andy and the team at Public Works have designed, because it's separated architecturally. It's not just here are some books and some that read younger. This is a real room for the teens. So this is a little bit unique for us, and it's a really great thing that we can do for the community to meet their needs. With regards to the stroller parking, I like the way you think. The Historic Preservation Commission and the Civic Design Review folks were really, really particular about the specific look of this corner, because this is the historic view on the branch. And so it was, it took a lot of design thinking to swing them around to the idea of having the fenced in garden zone. And Andy's team had originally planned an addition on that side, which would have been covered, but that wasn't something that they were as open to for historic preservation and design purposes.
Well, they're not as practical as they could be, right?
Yeah, this is Andy. It was considered the elevations on 24th Street and on Bartlett Street are considered our primary historic facades. And in a rehabilitation scenario like we were allowed to expand on the Orange Alley side only.
Okay. Well, my last thought about the teen center is I sort of love the way the teen center is set up at the main library, that you really, it's no joke. You really have to be between certain ages and certain hours, and adults, don't even bother walking in. Is it going to be that kind of a teen center, or just a separate center for teens?
We're anticipating that at the hours when the teens are present, it will be a space really dedicated to teens. At other times of day, if other people wanted to sit in there, we wouldn't want to not be gracious hosts to seniors trying to read the newspaper in the morning light. But definitely at the times of day that the teens are present, we would have the space dedicated for their use. And the collection in that space will be geared toward the teen audience, and so will the furnishings.
Great. Okay, well, job well done.
Thank you, Commissioner Mall. I don't see any other hands up. I just want to go through once again. And if you've already had your comments said, if you can take your hand back down, because I'm not sure if it's a second comment that people want to make. And while you're doing that, this is Commissioner Wardell. I just want to say to thank both Kathy Danielle as well as Andrew, who's representing the architect firm for the work that you presented to us here. I just have one final question, just to make sure that we have done our due diligence in responding to and ensuring that this process that you have undertaken has really captured what you heard in the community and stakeholder meetings And if there are any part of this plan that you presented to the commission today that does not respond to or in full response to information that you would have received from the community, whether it was during a formal stakeholder community meeting or informally. I just think it's important for the commission to understand exactly how you responded to the input from the community and the various stakeholders.
Absolutely, President Wardell. This is Michael Lambert, City Librarian. We've had a very robust community engagement process, and we will continue to engage the community fully about this project at every opportunity. And I would just also like to add that we've heard some public comment earlier about temporary library spaces, and I want to assure the community that we're committed to providing library service to the Mission neighborhood during the construction. Prior to the public health emergency, we had been in discussions with City College about locating a temporary library space on the grounds of their Mission campus. Now, that has obviously changed in a COVID world. Furthermore, City College has had a transition in leadership. So our discussions had been with Chancellor Roca, who is no longer there. They have an interim chancellor, and we will reach out, and we're also contingency planning for other opportunities and potential spaces, but I just want to assure the community that we will have library services during the duration of this construction project.
I'm monitoring. I don't see any further hands raised by members of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. And so we will bring this agenda item to an end at this time. I want to again thank both Kathy and Andrew for your presentation and for your attention to detail and responding to the Commission's questions and comments. We look forward to seeing the ongoing progress. And so now I'd like to take us on to our third agenda item this evening, which is the City Librarian's report. This item is to allow the City Librarian to report on recent library activities and to make announcements. We will begin with the general public comment. And then after that, we'll first have the presentation and then we'll go into our general public comment. And then this will be a discussion item for the Library Commission.
Thank you, President Wardell. I have a number of staff reports this evening. Next slide, please. First off, I'm pleased to share the positive momentum we're experiencing with our SFPL to-go service. It's been a little over a month since we debuted this front door pickup service on August 10th. Next slide, please. Since I last presented to you in August, our staff has since stood up 4 more branches. The Eureka Valley branch, Marina, Merced, and Mission Bay branch libraries started SFPL to-go service on September 1st. Next slide, please. Our resilient library staff have done a remarkable job in getting organized, and they pulled out all the stops to prepare for reopening, even bringing balloons to the Merced location. Our staff is excited to be back in the branches, and I appreciate the leadership within the branches division to get staff trained and ready for SFPL to-go services. Next slide, please. Our patrons are delighted to be able to pick up their requested items again in these 4 neighborhoods. I had the opportunity to visit Marina, Eureka Valley, and Mission Bay and engage with the staff and see some of the patrons returning. The patrons I spoke with and observed were very appreciative to have library services coming back online in their neighborhood. Next slide, please. The book drops are seeing a steady amount of returns, and staff are following safe materials handling guidelines for the check-in process. Patrons are grateful to be able to turn in materials they've been hanging on to since we closed in March. Next slide, please. Our research strategy and analytics unit has been crunching the numbers and monitoring the level of business. Since opening the doors for SFPL to go at the main library on August 10th and at the Excelsior branch on August 11th, and 4 additional locations on September 1st, we have seen 7,433 patrons visit our 6 open locations through September 8th. Our 4 locations that opened September 1st had a successful opening week with 1,484 visits collectively, accounting for 20% of the total visits since the launch of SFPL to go. SFPL to go grows more popular with each passing week. At the main library, for example, we had 477 visitors our first week, while during the most recent week with data available, August 31st through September 6th, the main library had 1,372 visitors, a 187% increase. During that same period, Excelsior saw an 87% increase in weekly visits. We're encouraged by the increasing level of foot traffic. We had 427 patrons visit the main library on Tuesday this week alone, setting a new one-day SFPL to go record. Next slide, please. Perhaps not surprising, looking at the data, Saturdays are the busiest day of the week at each location, with Mondays at the main and Tuesdays at the branches being second most popular, indicating pent-up demand from the weekends. Next slide, please. Our circulation of physical materials has likewise been encouraging. Our numbers reflect items checked out and picked up as of August 27th at the main and as of August 22nd at Excelsior. In the period between SFPL to go's August 10th launch and August 27th, a total of 4,618 patrons retrieved 6,782 items. As of September 8th, we've already seen 29,668 items checked in, reflecting returned items that patrons have been patiently keeping since March. As SFPL staff continues to acquire new physical materials and to process holds, we're seeing increased numbers of items picked up, reflected in our growing weekly number of visitors. Next slide, please. The past couple of weeks have been particularly trying as our city has coped with extreme record-breaking heat, only to be followed by historic wildfires ravaging the West Coast. The health and safety of our staff and patrons has been our top priority, and we've had to suspend SFPL to go services on days when the air quality index reached 151 or unhealthy levels. At the same time, the San Francisco Public Library and our staff have demonstrated once again our vital contributions to the resiliency of our city by opening 3 locations, the main library, the Chinatown branch, and the Mission Bay branch as weather relief centers. The COVID Central Command and the city leadership deeply appreciates everything library staff is doing to support our residents. I'm so proud of this staff and their capacity to deliver public service under these challenging conditions. Next slide, please. In closing, I'm pleased to report that the Office of the City Administrator has approved the library's site-specific health and safety plans for our next 3 SFPL to go sites, the Chinatown branch, Ortega, and Visitation Valley. We're targeting to have these locations open the week of October 12th. This will greatly expand our reach around the city at these popular neighborhood branches. Next slide, please. We're also working in partnership with the San Francisco Unified School District to offer mobile outreach services as pop-up locations at 3 school sites. I do have a correction on this slide. We just learned this week that the Mission location will move from Cesar Chavez Elementary to John O'Connell High School, which is located at 20th and Treat. This is a better location for our bookmobile to access. In the Bayview neighborhood, we'll be offering service at Willie Brown Middle School. And for the Ocean View branch and the greater OMI neighborhood, we'll be at Jose Ortega Elementary School. We'll also bring the bookmobile to Treasure Island on Wednesdays, renewing our commitment to this community on a weekly basis. And we really value the partnership with the San Francisco Unified School District, which is giving us the support from their facilities and custodians to allow this service to open. We'll be doing a soft launch of this service starting a week from today with book giveaways at these sites, and then supporting Hold's pickup service in the weeks to follow. And that concludes the SFPL To Go update. Next slide, please. With regards to other activation of our neighborhood libraries, I also have a brief report on the status of the community hubs. At last month's Library Commission meeting, we heard from the Department of Children, Youth, and Families Director, Maria Sue, who presented about the library's partnership with DCYF to support vulnerable populations of school-aged children with their distance learning. Next slide, please. In review, the Community Hubs initiative was announced by Mayor Breed to provide neighborhood-based, safe, and clean spaces accessible for youth to be more successful with their academic achievement in a distance learning environment. As discussed last month, the Community Hubs are sites equipped with connectivity and staff to support youth with their distance learning and the social and emotional supports school-aged children need. As Director Sue explained last month, many youth did not benefit from SFUSD's distance learning model in the spring. And this is where we come in. We have the infrastructure for trained youth development professionals from community-based organizations to come in and manage and operate our libraries as hubs. As a reminder, our staff will not be there to deliver the actual program, but to serve as gracious hosts. And I'm pleased to report that I've had productive discussions with our labor partners from SEIU 1021. We were well positioned to support the first library location, the Richmond Branch Library, that was slated to open on September 14th. DCYF has since pushed that opening date out to October 5th, and they now intend to launch the Bernal Heights and Western Addition Branch Libraries at the same time as community hubs. Next slide, please. Over the course of the past month, the Department of Children, Youth, and Families has adjusted their plans to take a more phased approach to launching the various sites around the city. As it pertains to the library, you may recall that DCYF initially identified 15 library locations. They have since ruled out Glen Park and Potrero as viable sites. And just this week, they added Anza and Portola to the locations being returned to us, which leaves several remaining options for future phases of activation. From the media reports this week, I understand the hubs successfully launched at 45 sites around the city, placing approximately 800 youth in week one. And the library will certainly continue to work closely with our DCYF partners and remain poised to support the success of these community hubs as SFUSD gradually reopens our public school system. And that concludes the Community Hubs report. Next slide, please. Now I am pleased to introduce our next presenter, Leah Hillman, the manager of the 4th floor of the main library, which houses our Business, Science, and Technology Center. Leah will be presenting about our Work It program series. Leah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak tonight about what we're doing. The Business, Science, and Technology Center on the 4th floor of the main library is back in business. We are focusing on supporting job and career seekers, personal finance needs, and small business owners through resources located on our web pages, as well as a robust menu of programs. I will talk about programming first. Our wonderful PR department has given these programs a brand, Work It. Slide, please. For jobs and careers programs, we're focusing on getting people back into the workforce by helping them gain or hone their job-seeking skills, overcome social or psychological barriers, and gain better confidence as they navigate the job market. We partner with the local division of the State Employment Development Department, keeping pace with job seekers' needs by offering monthly programs on resume writing essentials, interviewing essentials, and how to get a state job. Attendance at these programs has been over 100 people with close to 300 registrants per program. In addition to EDD programs, jobs and careers programs in the coming months include SF Reserve's First Impressions program, which matches talented, skilled older adults and people with disabilities with paid part-time and project-based work at local nonprofits and other community-based organizations in San Francisco. On October 6th, Hope Levy will present Age as an Asset, a program that explores ways for older adults to use their life experiences to land the perfect job. On November 3rd, the Senior Community Service Employment Program will present their job readiness program that helps older adults transition from on-the-job training back into the workforce for full-time or part-time employment. Additionally, we are working on reestablishing our one-on-one career coaching sessions virtually and offering resume writing workshops independent of EDD. The demand for such programs is that high. Job seekers can visit our Jobs and Career Center online, where they can find a multitude of resources such as live resume, interviewing, and career coaching, resources for groups such as youth, 50+, reentry, LGBTQIA, and immigrants. Next slide, please. The call for personal finance support is also high. Financial Planning Day, our annual October event that formally offered one-on-one personal finance coaching, is reimagined into a virtual speaker series covering topics such as health insurance, taxes, and investing over the course of the next few months. Additionally, we are working with other partners on a series covering money psychology, budgeting, saving, and investing. Our program last week, which gave an overview of these topics, drew an audience of 96 attendees with 284 registrants. So clearly the need for this support is high. We continue to partner with the Office of Financial Empowerment to offer Smart Money Coaching, which provides free, confidential, one-on-one, personalized financial guidance with a certified financial coach. In small business, we are working with the Office of Small Business to explore virtual programming. Our partnership with the Heart of the City's Farmers Market continues virtually with a presentation on how COVID-19 has impacted our small business farmers, particularly those who speak English as a second language, and how the adjustments they've had to make impact our community. We are partnering with Reference USA to teach business owners how to use their database, such as U.S. business and consumer modules, to target specific groups of businesses or individuals who may most likely be interested in their products and services. We partner with Candid's Foundation Directory, which offers trainings, such as the one yesterday on how to get grants for nonprofits using their database. The Foundation Directory online is normally only accessible at the main, but during COVID-19, Candid has made their database available to any library user. On our BizSci Tech web pages, check out our business and personal finance resources, including COVID local resources, and our business and finance databases. Next slide, please. Inquiries into the Business Science and Technology Center can be made here at bizscitech@sfpl.org. And if you'd like to be added to the BST newsletter, please sign up for news on upcoming events and more. I'd like to thank my staff, CPP, our library administration, web services, and IT for their continued support. We could not have accomplished this much without it. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. You're too kind. And I'm just so proud of Leah and her team and their commitment to supporting the economic recovery in San Francisco. And next slide, please. And to conclude the city librarian's report this evening, I am super proud to announce the San Francisco Public Library's Talking Books and Braille Center has been recognized by the Library of Congress, National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled for outstanding service to readers who are visually or physically disabled. Our Talking Books and Braille Center program manager, Jane Glasby, is here this evening to share more about this accomplishment. Jane?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. So this annual prize is awarded by the Library of Congress National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled. The Talking Books and Braille Center at San Francisco Public Library was awarded Sub-Regional Library of the Year for 2019. I'd like to start by thanking colleagues from SFPL across the divisions for supporting our work. I say that in particular because I believe that we stood out in the network of libraries across the country and overseas territories for reasons associated with the fact that we are part of SFPL. We get a lot of patrons visiting in person because of our location as a transit hub, and many libraries across the country who serve this network are not in that same position. And like the rest of SFPL, we offer great programming and exhibitions, including music jams, book clubs, audio-described movies, craft programs like Build Your Own Terrarium, games, Braille story times, tech workshops, and school visits. And those of you who can see the slides, that first picture is Braille story time held in the Children's Center at the Main. On the right, Liz Phillips, our Braille transcriber and a member of the California Council of the Blind San Francisco chapter, reading to children. The second picture is in the atrium of the Main, the Hooray for Braille celebration, where members of the California Council of the Blind are demonstrating the benefits to literacy and life skills of having Braille, and also technology associated. The third picture is a poetry jam in the Talking Books and Braille Center. And the fourth picture is from an exhibition it's a touchable exhibition of costumes from Mrs. Vera and the Vera Sphere, as are famous in the Pride Parade every year. Another way we stand out is offering intensive one-to-one attention. We know many of our patrons very well. When they phone in, we recognize their voices. We look for other sources of audiobooks, such as SFPL Overdrive and maybe the Internet Archive. Those that are not in our Talking Books collection, we work out how to play them on various devices. We regularly spend upwards of half an hour on the phone with a patron, particularly supporting all kinds of technologies within and beyond the immediate scope of the library. Then we closed in mid-March, but since mid-April, we managed to pick up our work and continue from a distance. We've made an effort to contact every one of our patrons. We help them through email and the phone to download Talking Books. We send out digital Talking Books on cartridges through the United States Postal Service, and all from the shelter of our homes. We've also begun offering virtual programs over Zoom. Sheltering in Place While Blind is a weekly discussion group facilitated by our Braille transcriber. The long-running Talking Book Club enjoys more participation than ever. A monthly writer's salon allows people to share their own or a favorite piece for discussion. And there are plans for more participatory programming coming soon. Virtual programming has the potential to make it far easier for people to participate without having to travel. However, congratulations to all of you who got here on Webex. And we know it's been a little problematic over the weeks, and we're getting better. But Zoom is more accessible. But many people don't have internet, and if you don't, you have to pay for a landline call, remember long strings of numbers, and have the dexterity to punch them in fast enough. So we're working to get the ability to dial out to our patrons, and we hope that this will increase participation across the whole SFPL system, bridging that digital divide and the accessibility divide. Slide 2, please. And this is our team, past and present. First, I want to acknowledge two people not in this Zoom portrait. Marty Goddard, Access Services Manager. We depend on Marty for her comprehensive knowledge of all aspects of service to people with disabilities and her very important connections to the community nationally, internationally, and locally. Marty's very modest about her national profile, but she does have connections everywhere, and she is very knowledgeable. And great thanks to Tom Fortin, Chief of the Main. Without his ability to listen and move things forward, we wouldn't have been able to continue service during the lockdown. So thanks for your creativity, Tom. And the people on the screen, what they all share is a dedication to serving individuals and communities. We have pages who lean over a shoulder to help someone prove they are not a robot by identifying all the pictures with traffic lights in them, or guide someone to a paratransit pickup at the curb, maybe the bus, or even a taxi. We have library technical assistants who take great care of signing people up for the services they need, such as the Russian language talking books that they can get from New York. And also who phone someone when they notice they haven't had a books by mail bag in a long time. Our Braillist is a tech maven who helps other units at SFPL make the electronic collections and the website more accessible through her expertise in accessibility and testing. And of course, our professional librarians offer all the reader advisory, book discovery, text support, programs, and exhibitions for which patrons thank us every day. So I just want to shout out the names of the librarians and others, and our other staff, librarians Tom Duffy, Nell Jau, Erin Facey, Julieta Fox, who's now at Ingleside, James May, who stepped up for deaf services, our library technical assistants, Ricardo Cisneros and Jane Friesen, our pages, Kenya Dume, Yelena Kakova, Hector Escaraman, and Cynthia Hernandez, who's now at Bernal, and our Braille transcriber and tech wizard, Liz Phillips. And that four-legged creature is her guide dog, Cambry, who's not wearing her harness in this picture, and thereby is everyone's pet. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Jane. Jane Glasby and her team, they truly embody the very best of San Francisco Public Library's values for equitable access, diversity, and inclusion. I also want to give a shout out to the Talking Books and Braille Center Advisory Group, Charlie, and everybody. Their input and ongoing feedback and patronage makes us a better library system. And that concludes the City Librarian's report.
Thank you so much, City Librarian Lambert, and to all those that gave presentations today. We'll have another opportunity to speak with those individuals or be able to give them comments. But right now, we're going to go into our public comment on this agenda item. Operations, if you would queue up and put through the first caller.
Caller, your 3 minutes begins now.
My name is Charlie Doris. I'm Vice President of the Talking Book and Braille Center Advisory Committee. We are not surprised at the Talking Book and Braille Center winning this award because the heart and soul of any organization are its people. And the staff at the TBBC provides a safe and welcoming place for disabled people. It is a rare culture that they have created there that creates a can-do attitude for people requesting information, and patrons leave the Talking Book and Braille Center with their dignity, self-respect, and independence reaffirmed. We are very proud to work with the TBBC staff. And let me also acknowledge the staff at the SFPL. Without their support, the advisory committee could do not nearly as much as we do. So thank you so much. And as some of you know, our part of the library is being renovated. And again, that could not be done without the great assistance of so many people at the SFPL. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that comment, the Vice President of the Advisory Board of the Center. Operations, is there another commenter in the queue?
Madam President, there are additional commenters.
Please put the next one through.
Caller, your 3 minutes begins now.
It's very hard to hear how much you are disserving and how much disservice you are practicing for the tens of thousands of San Francisco patrons who do not have internet. All these congratulations are a hollow reckoning that you need to come to terms with. All of these services are wonderful for people who have the internet. For the rest of us, and there are tens of thousands of us, you just cannot ignore us and pretend that we're not here. I heard some mention of some service that you're providing, and I congratulate you. You are serving the community that is deaf in those services. But you are not serving the rest of us. And even more disgraceful is how do the rest of us know what services the library is providing? I think you need to take as a model when we had the intense pollution recently, you had the Latino room open to the public where they could use a Wi-Fi connection if they bring their own computer. This should be a model where you can provide internet service to thousands of San Francisco patrons who don't have internet from their homes. I don't know why you don't do that, but I'm very offended that you are ignoring us and you think we're going to go away and you don't have any duty to serve us. Also, I still find it very strange that the library is doing the job of the San Francisco Unified School District. You are taking services away from us patrons who are library patrons, and it's wonderful that the children are being served, but that's not your job. Your job is to serve the whole population of patrons, and you are neglecting thousands. How many times do we have to say this? I think you really need to come to terms with the fact that all of these awards you're getting are not for serving people who are not on the internet. These are awards you're getting to provide services to people on the internet. There's billions of dollars floating around for services for people on the internet. The library itself spends millions of dollars on these e-services. What you're doing for the rest of us remains to be seen. It's a gap, it's a hole, and you need to address it, fill it, and do your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, caller. Operations, will you put the next caller through?
Yes, am I on or what?
Yes, you are. Yes, so I can hear you.
All right, I didn't hear. My time begins now. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com. And I would love to talk with Jane Glasby. So let's start with the previous speaker is very correct. Over 100,000 people in San Francisco don't have computer access. I've given you the document that documents that from the mayor's office. And 19,000 San Francisco library card holders have requested written notices, and you sent one notice about the closure and then the reopening, one notice to the people on the mailing list, and many updates to and informational notices to people on email. You should not forget the people that don't have access. It's a question of equity. And of course, the most affected are the minorities, the poorest, and the oldest. First of all, I'd like to say that I find it really offensive that we have all these items, important items, core to the library's function on a single agenda item. I suppose that serves your purpose, or maybe the city librarians or the chairs, by limiting public comment, but not limiting the library's comment. Let's start with the award. It's terrific to hear the librarian talk about the award for the blind program. Even the architecture of the building actually incorporates something to help guide the blind folks to the room where the blind services are provided. And I was fascinated to hear an acknowledgement, and I was very pleased to hear that she was saying that Webex, Jane Glasby was saying Webex has problems, and that some people don't have access to a computer. I wish the Library Commission and the city librarian would make that public announcement, awareness, and adjust accordingly. The opening omitted was how long it takes to get a book, why there is a book limit only giving circulating materials from the library that happens to be open. And there's no provision, no planning even, as far as I understand it, for newspapers and magazines, leaving us in these perilous times and in these information-jammed times to basically be stuck with the web or whatever we can dig around and afford to purchase, if we can even find a place to get newspapers and magazines. The circulation, where's the comparison with the normal circulation of millions? Of course, it's hooray. And of course, we're glad that there is service, even however partial, and hope that that continues. Same comment we had before, and as the previous speaker, about the library being a library as a primary thing.
3 minutes.
That's what the priority should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Operations, are there any further commenters?
Madam President, there are no additional commenters in the queue.
Thank you so much. So I'd like to move this into our library commissioners discussion. We have the librarians city librarians report, and there are several items on there, including some individuals who provided their own presentations within the city librarians report. And I'm going to call on commissioners at this time for comment and or question on any item you heard within that librarian's report. And I'd like to call Commissioner Ono. If you would unmute. Great.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned before, I love this part of the agenda. It gives us a chance to thank the SFPL staff for everything that they have done in incredible times, but also just on a normal basis. Just getting the award for the TBBC is a prime example. It's been awarded for services last year. But I also want to thank all of the staff that have been doing SFPL to go, but also the air respite centers. I mean, last week was horrendous. I did not go out of my house for a couple of days. I couldn't open my windows, and I was so glad that there were other locations that people could go to get fresh air. So I applaud our staff as always. I love the Work It. It's so timely that we are doing this program. One of my nephews just was told he was laid off, so I am going to be referring him to go to some of these seminars. And I hope he learns a lot and hope he finds a job. But again, the library is not doing the work of the district. We're working in collaboration with the school district, which I think is a great service for our students, but also for the city. So I applaud again. Thank you for all the programs, and keep it up, and we'll see you next month. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Ono. I'd like to call Commissioner Lee next.
Yes. Well, I like all the presentation. First of all, the congratulations to TBBC team. It's marvelous that with the advisory group working, collaborating, and come up with this beautiful program. So Yes, thank you very much. The second one that I have is about Work It. I can see that all these functions are very important in this difficult time. And when there are so many that is being provided, this is an excellent value that is being offered. I catch about think about last week that there are 240 who applied to the program, only 96 attendees. I'm just wondering whether that is typical, or is there something that we could find out? People were signing up because it's free and therefore they didn't care. Because in your case, I assume that you have to plan a lot in order to bring this program on. So just a comment that I'm observing. My other question is about the SF to go update. I like the numbers, as you can tell. From the number, what I am finding, for example, in terms of circulation, some of the branches, they do have check-in and they do have check-out. But there are 3 branches, they have check-ins, but no check-out. Is there any sort of look into it, any insight to gain from that situation? The one thing that I could sort of make a wild guess is that the people who check in, they have converted to the electronic way of getting their stuff to check out, and therefore they just turn in their physical stuff, and then no more checkout necessary because they have already converted to the e-checkout. So this is just my wild guess as to whether that is the case or that isn't. So it's interesting to know the insights in many of these behaviors, so to speak, that's shown up as registered in data, how it is to gain the insight and be able to connect with the community with a greater effect, with a greater impact. Again, I just marvel at how it is the San Francisco team, the library staff team, and the union and the management team are working so well behind the scene to bring these into fruition. My last comment is really an acknowledgement. Acknowledgement about there is so to speak, a group that probably felt very left behind. I'm sure that the staff and management team are also racking its brain to try to see how can it be accommodated with a proper balance of being safe and as well as providing the access. So it's not an easy problem to solve. And however, I want to acknowledge that I have heard the public comment about those without internet and feeling left behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Lee. I'm just monitoring. I don't see any other commissioner hand up on this current commission item, which is the city librarian's report. And so seeing that there's no other hand raised for discussion, I just want to, first of all, thank the city librarian and all the people that provided input on this particular report. And I want to say, particularly, I want to congratulate Jane Glassby for the remarkable leadership that you have shown the patrons as well as the residents and community members. I'm sure people come to the center beyond San Francisco, and to get recognition for the way in which you have led a culture that is so inclusive and that it not just for the patrons, the library patients, but to do it amongst and with the staff, and then to be acknowledged by the highest kind of authority as far as libraries are concerned in the United States, the Library of Congress. That is such a significant honor that you've brought to our city. And so I want to thank you, Jane, for your leadership. Thank you for the way that you have continued to put the needs of those that oftentimes are marginalized and excluded day in and day out in society, how you have put them at the center and you have put them, put their needs and focused on them in a ways that they should. So with that, we are going to go to our next agenda item, and thank you all for that City Librarian's report. Our next agenda item is the fourth item, which is the approval of the minutes of August 20th of 2020. And this is an action item for the commission and will need to be approved. But before we go into that, I'd like to call us to first to have public comment on item number 4.
All right, operations. Do we have any callers in the queue?
Madam President, there's one caller in the queue.
Thank you, operations. Would you put the caller through for comment?
Caller, your 3 minutes begins now.
Good afternoon again. It's Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com. I'd like to say that several times during this meeting, although I pressed *3 to raise my hand for comment on the next item, I was informed at some point in a very hard to hear and hard to understand when people are talking in the background at the meeting that my hand had been lowered. I didn't press *3 to lower it. I had to repeatedly press *3 if I heard that cue. And that's not something that you're describing in your instructions for people. You seem to be clearing the commenters at various points during the meeting without their doing anything. I wanted to make some comments in general. First of all, while I appreciate if the city librarian may have intended to be helpful by including Library Users Association address, we never said that. We only gave our email address. It doesn't begin with an ampersand sign. It begins, we said it's at, we're at. This is where you can find us, English Language AT. It's not a Twitter account or anything like that. And we never gave our mailing address, which we have and which I would give if I wanted to. This is a fiction. This is something that's been created, and that's very problematic. I don't know why that was done. Maybe the city librarian thought it would be helpful, but it seems to me that we have to be concerned, even if it's helpful to ourselves, about accuracy with respect to the minutes. There also seems to be a problem. I seem to be a they or them on occasion rather than he. Seems like both are being used, and I think it would be useful to be consistent. Generally speaking, I think of myself as a he. There are a couple of things here. At one point, it says that I've said that the library is essential and that it should be essential. In fact, I said that it appears that it's not considered essential by the library or by the city, but it should be considered essential. And that would make sense out of that particular comment. There's a range of matters that are here that I unfortunately haven't been able to make as careful notes as I would like to, but I do think that it's worth having accurate minutes and not create stuff that somebody did not actually say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to double check. Operations, is there another commenter in the queue?
Madam President, there are no additional commenters in the queue.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to go through a process. I just want to make sure that that it's clear to the commission that we need to do a roll call for each item. And so I will call your name at the end of this portion, but be mindful that we will do an actual roll call where we will need to hear you say aye or no. But before we get to that, are there any commissioners that would like to make a motion?
This is Commissioner Wolf. I'm happy to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second. This is Teresa Ono.
Okay, so we've had Commissioner Wolf has raised her hand and has made a motion. And Commissioner Ono has seconded that motion. So now I'm going to go through and we are going to do a roll call of the remaining commissioners who will vote aye or no. So you're going to please say aye or no when I call your name. Commissioner Ono? Actually, Commissioner Ono, I'm so sorry. You already made the second motion. I'm so sorry. Commissioner Mall? Commissioner Mall?
I approve.
Okay. That's aye? Commissioner Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Lee?
Aye.
And that concludes all the commissioners. And so the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, commissioners. Just want to make sure that we get that appropriately for the public record, making sure that everyone speaks and that it's heard by the public. So now we are going to move into our final item of the agenda, which is our adjournment. And we're going to be doing that in the memory of Ann Isley. This will require, obviously, a motion by the commission and an action by the commission. But I'm going to turn it over to the city librarian for this portion.
Thank you, President Wardell. I appreciate this opportunity to pay tribute this evening to one of our beloved library staff. This past August, the San Francisco Public Library family lost librarian Ann Isley. Her passing was highly unexpected and a shock to her SFPL colleagues. It was just this past July when we gave Ann a shout out as one of our recent retirees at our all-staff meeting. Ann faithfully served the San Francisco Public Library for over 27 years, most recently as a librarian in the Arts, Music, and Recreation Center on the 4th floor of the main library. Ann also served in many other departments of the library, including the General Collections Department. That's where she began her career in 1994. The following year, she was promoted from library technical assistant to librarian in the same department. She transitioned to the branches in 2000 and worked at the West Portal Branch Library. She also worked at the main library's Children's Center. In 2002, she transitioned to the North Beach Branch Library. And since 2008, she has been on the 4th floor of the main library in the Art, Music, and Recreation Center. In her obituary, Ann was said to have led a very courageous life, yet always kept her sense of humor, style, and passion for the arts. She had an infectious laugh that would brighten up any room. After graduating from the University of California, San Diego, she received her master's degree of Library and Information Science from San Jose State University. I had the opportunity to participate in a celebration of Anne's life a couple of weeks ago, and I learned so much about her zest for life and music. She clearly touched many people's lives, including her colleagues at the San Francisco Public Library. Commissioners, thank you for your consideration of adjourning the Library Commission meeting this evening in her memory.
Thank you, City Librarian, for sharing that memoriam for her. At this particular time, I'd like to open it up to our final public comment.
Madam President, at present, there are no commenters in the queue. Now there's one.
Thank you. Would you put our caller through, please?
Caller, your 3 minutes begins now.
Yes, is that me?
Yes, yes. We can
I heard
hear
some background
you.
noise. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. We can be reached at libraryusers2004@yahoo.com. Certainly agree with and approve adjourning in honor of Anne Isley. It's always terrific to honor a librarian, especially one of the long-serving ones that San Francisco Public Library has in actually some numbers. The librarians are actually one of the most wonderful assets of the library and one of the biggest pleasures of going to the library. I've occasionally said that the librarian is the best search engine. And the art and music department is one of my favorite places, and it always seems a pleasure to go, and it has been a pleasure, and it has been well run. And I certainly want to chime in with adjourning in honor of one of the long-serving San Francisco public librarians, and especially in that department. Thank you.
Thank you, caller, for your comment. Operations, are there any further commenters?
Madam President, there are no additional commenters.
Okay, thank you. Commission, we are going to call for a motion to adjourn our meeting in honor of recently retired and now has transitioned Anne Isley. I'd like to inquire, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. That was Commissioner Wong. Is there a second to adjourn?
Commissioner Lee, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. So with the remaining commissioners, all those in favor to adjourn our meeting, I'm going to call you. You'll say aye or no. Commissioner Wolf?
Aye.
Commissioner Ono?
Aye.
And Commissioner Mall?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for this robust conversation. So much good material, so many good things happening in the city and county of San Francisco that the San Francisco Public Library is at the center of it all. Thank you so much, and we will see you in our next public meeting. This meeting is adjourned.